The responsivity principle has to do with the way that the programs are addressed or taught, actually, or run. And it has to do with the kind of trying to address the kind of learning styles of the prisoners themselves. So like less emphasis on heavy verbal and reading skills, more emphasis on cognitive, behavioral kinds of approaches, and I can't remember actually the other lessons to that responsivity principle. But it's how the treatment is being delivered, and it has to be delivered in such a way that's appropriate to the population that you're trying to serve. And the last one is program integrity, and that's one of the most important ones. That whatever treatment is delivered, it should be the one that was intended. First of all, there's often mission creep or just the program starts off trying to do one thing and it does something else. That's an issue of fidelity in part. The dosage is very important. I mean, how much of this treatment are people getting? The level of participation among the offenders in the treatment program is very important. And then the qualifications of the staff who are delivering the program. I'm going to turn it over to Dave, but I just want to briefly run through some. This is the conclusion from the Pew study that I mentioned before, and it kind of highlights a lot of the same issues. The first one is do better assessments, sort offenders by risk to public safety. And this is something that Michigan is actually making a lot of strides in. The second one is base intervention programs on the science. So develop case plans and programs that are tailored for individual needs, another thing that MPRI is trying to do. And situate supervision services in neighborhoods around where people are living. And that's a big focus of some work that's going on in Detroit that Dave might mention if I don't take up all of his time. Harness technology, things like electronic monitoring and drug testing and alcohol testing. Impose swift and certain sanctions. Swiftness and certainty have been proven to be more important than harshness, essentially. And so if there's too much of a delay in processing before you get the sanction, then that's going to deplete the effectiveness of the sanction. And then the other key thing here is that the community corrections officers need to have options for graduated sanctions, that they don't just have to return somebody to prison, but they can put them someplace else and give them a harsher sanction that's below putting them back in prison for their job, for them to be effective at their job. Create incentives for success. That's things like shaving time off of parole sentences for good behavior, for compliance with the parole guidelines that you have. And it's a kind of a carrot, and it's the carrot to the stick, essentially. Give people a reason to want to comply with the rules that you're giving them to live under when they're under supervision. And then finally, measure progress. And again, that's where the research end comes in. And there's been a lot of great work done in states like New York, New York City, which developed the CompStat system for collaboration among police agencies. And CompStat stands for computer, I've heard it stands for many different things. So it's like computer statistics or something like that. And what it does is it's a system, an organizational system where people from different police districts gather around the table, look at data on the city and how each of their district is doing, and draw conclusions about where to direct resources. And the idea is that this same kind of organizational structure could be imported into community corrections, and that community corrections officers should be talking to each other more, they should be talking to law enforcement agents more. And again, there's some work that the Department of Corrections is planning for Detroit that Dave might talk about that is actually going exactly in that direction. So now I'm going to turn it over to Dave.
Okay, thanks, Jeff. So I'm going to switch gears a little bit here, and we prepared too many slides.
Oh,
so,
I forgot about that.
All right, there we go. All right. So we're going to switch gears and talk about what we're actually doing, what the Michigan Study of Life After Prison is about. In sort of a sentence, our focus is on the social context of prisoner reentry. So Jeff mentioned that there's been a lot of research on individual characteristics and individual circumstances, criminal histories, and things like that. Not much emphasis on what is the role of social context in how people do when they come out of prison, whether they find employment, whether they're able to stay away from drugs, whether they get back involved in crime. And for us, the two social contexts that we're most interested in are neighborhoods and what we're calling living arrangements, which you could think of as sort of families and households, but a lot of people who come out of prison live in other more institutional settings, either homeless shelters or treatment programs and things like that. So the first piece, and the one that we'll focus on most today, is our analysis of administrative records from the Michigan Department of Corrections. And our goal in this is to follow a sample of people over time who all got out of prison at the same time in the year 2003, and to look at their living arrangements in their neighborhoods and see what the relationship is between those things and their outcomes, their particularly employment, recidivism, and drug use. And so what we've done is we've taken what we call the population, so everybody who left, who was paroled from a Michigan prison to a Michigan community in the year 2003. That's about a little over 11,000 people. And then we took a 1/3 sample of those. So we randomly sampled them to work with that 1/3. And the reason is that actually assembling the data on all these people is very, very time consuming. It's going to be impossible to do all 11,000, so we took a 1/3. And so we're drawing data from Michigan Department of Corrections records, from people's histories before they were incarcerated, what happened to them in prison, and then sort of prospectively following them over time. And what's unique about this project, not just in terms of Michigan, but in terms of research nationally, is this reliance on the narrative case notes. So looking at the notes the parole agents are writing about their parolees to figure out where they're living, who they're living with, what their employment situation is, and so on. So this is how we can tap in to what people's social contexts actually are like. And one of the big reasons people haven't looked at social context before is because it's very hard to look at that. And we're grateful to the Michigan Department of Corrections for helping us to do this. So the second piece, which started also about 2 years ago, is a pilot interview study. So in this study, we're actually gathering the data ourselves. We started with 24 prisoners who were in 2 Michigan prisons who were coming back to southeastern Michigan. And we interviewed them once in prison before they were released. And we've been following them over time, doing interviews with them, both structured interviews where we ask them sort of closed-ended questions that would be data comparable to what would be in administrative data in some cases, and others just what researchers call qualitative interviews. We're just sitting down and talking to them about their experiences, anything they want to tell us about what's happening to them, to really get a sense of what their lives are like and going through this experience. And I'll talk a little bit more about that later, and we'll probably draw on those experiences in answering some of your questions. This is the thing that Jeff was referring to, the Detroit Neighborhoods Project. MDOC is working on putting together the resources to do a neighborhood-focused intervention in Detroit in the Osborne community that would change kind of the way that parole and probation in that community is done to make it more community-based. So having parole and probation agents assigned to a particular community so they can get to know the community, they can better connect their parolees and probationers up to resources, they can know the police in the community and the community service providers and so on. And we're going to be, if the resources come through, we're going to be helping to evaluate the effectiveness of that program. And then the last thing is we've been had the privilege of working with MDOC also on kind of as consultants for the comprehensive evaluation of MPRI, and particularly what's called the Learning Site, which is an effort to completely implement the Michigan Prisoner Reentry Initiative in prison in the Ionia Bellamy Creek facility for people returning to Kent County, and to sort of learn how to do the in-prison services that are part of MPRI. I'm going to focus mostly on A, a little bit on B today, but we're happy to take questions on C and D. Okay, so a lot of this is going to be some sort of simple facts to get ourselves oriented here. So these are the characteristics of the parolees in our administrative data sample. So the people who were released in 2003, what were they like when they came out of prison? And hopefully those who have the handouts can see the details. These are all sort of percentages by categories. And the point that I want to emphasize here, we could go through this in detail, but the point to emphasize is that this is a highly disadvantaged group of people. So one example is, I don't know if you can see.